Hello, scholars. My name is Ira McIntosh, and this is Hypothesis. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to my office. It is time for another episode, and winter has set in. I don't know where you are, but here in France, it has gotten very cold very quickly. I get that it's almost December. Theoretically, conceptually, I understand that we are getting to that point of the year, but it doesn't feel like we should be getting to this point of the year. Wasn't it just May? I, it truly, I have no concept of time anymore. I feel like since leaving my master's program, graduating, I don't know why I said leaving. It wasn't, I didn't drop out, I promise. You can see it. I finally got my diploma. It's sitting back there. Yay! If you're watching the video of this, you can see my 3 diplomas. I feel so accomplished. It's a necessary feeling right now as PhD applications are slowly moving forward, needing to contact people. So, but yeah, in this cold season, my heart goes out to others like me who are applying to PhD programs. But that's not why you all are here. You're here to hear me talk to another scholar. So, this episode is really interesting. I have a background in singing, so I know a little bit about audiology just peripherally. When I was in my first master's program, we were required to go over to the audiology department and learn how harmonics work and learn how their equipment works. We did a huge science portion to my pedagogy class. So I had a little bit of understanding of where this conversation was going to go, but it ended up being so much more interesting and exciting than I realized it could be. We talk about creating standardized methodology and language and model for talking about noise pollution. We talk about what audiences are expecting versus what they get at concerts in terms of volume levels, and just how sound can affect us as humans. I'm really excited to welcome this week's guest, who is Demi Oshin. Demi is a first-year PhD student researching the development of tech solutions to foster safe listening in music venues. With a master's in computer science, she leverages her tech expertise to address the issue of acoustic overexposure in music venues. She's an advocate for sharing research with the larger community, and she documents her PhD journey online through short-form videos on TikTok and written articles. She's passionate about sharing her findings of navigating the research world as a young person in modern academia. Everyone, please help me welcome Demi Oshin. I'm also very excited because the weather has finally cooled down just enough that closing my windows to record is not creating some kind of inferno in my
Nice.
apartment.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I just moved a few weeks ago, and this room has the insane insulation that I basically always have to have the windows open. But today
Yeah.
the weather's cooled down, so I can okay, close the windows. You're not gonna hear random sounds from the neighbor.
Right? Oh my God. Yeah. And it's luckily it's basically turned into fall at this point. During the day, it's still getting up to 34 degrees, but at
Yeah.
night, we are getting down to 20 degrees. Last night it was 20 degrees and I was laying in my bed just oh, it feels so
Yeah.
cold. It's wonderful.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I love it when it's cooled down because the heat has just been can't do anything, just have to sit there and be like,
I'm
okay.
not made for it. Yeah, I am not made for it. So, okay, so welcome. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Yes.
Um Could we just at the beginning, I like to ask my guests to talk a little bit about their academic journeys and what got them to where they are. And we've been kind of talking on TikTok a little bit about
Yeah,
like, because the English school system confuses me to no
it is
end.
so
So
confusing.
so just tell me a little bit about what got you to your PhD and why you chose your topic and all of that fun stuff.
Yeah. So, honestly, so I've always been into music, and music's been like the grounding thing that I love doing, playing piano since I was 5. And that was the main thing I wanted to study at uni. So I took it like GCSE, A level, and I was like, I'm going to study music. But unfortunately, I have parents who are very much like, don't study music. You will not get anywhere. And as much as
Fair.
like looking back, I used to get annoyed at it, but in a way, it's worked out because whilst I was pursuing music in school, I was also really good at computer science and coding. And this was kind of at the time where computer science wasn't really seen as a career per se. It was still kind of early days. So like the idea of studying computer science at uni was still kind of like, you'll be fine, but we don't know much about what's going to happen here. So I figured, you know what? If I can't do music, I can do computer science and maybe see if I can put music in that somehow. So I applied for computer science at Nottingham, got in, and yeah, I did the masters. And I was originally going to go towards the more industry route because I was really liking software engineering, building tools to
Mm.
help people. That was a big thing for me. And like I interned at Google in first year, which was an insane experience, and just got to like see how the software engineering industry world works. But it wasn't
Mhm.
until around third year when I did my first dissertation, I was like, actually, research is really cool.
Yeah.
And I built a tool that was basically like to help people in church to vote for songs that they want to hear in the service. And I was like, okay,
Nice.
actually, this is really cool that I can like build tools that can help people in different domains. And I think
Mm.
that was something I wanted to keep doing. So I did my master's, I did another dissertation there, which was where I was converting climate change data into musical material for composers if they wanted to create like climate inspired music sort of thing.
Oh, wow.
I know,
Oh,
right?
that's so cool.
Yeah. So like doing that made me realize, okay, I think this research thing is what I want to do. It was really hard to choose the topic in the end because it was like I had done so much computer science that I could either continue the coding route and just building stuff, or I could go into a whole different domain and learn more about that. So what I did was I looked into doing a PhD in the School of Computer Science, but then I realized actually there's this PhD here in the School of Medicine. Even though it's a bit out of my domain, the skills they want is someone who can code, and it's going to be about helping young people who go to music venues not have hearing loss. And I thought, okay, I can code. I could probably go for it. So I applied for it, got the interview, and I got that PhD. And like, honestly, still to this day, I don't know how that all worked out. But since then, it's been honestly the best experience ever. Like, I'm having a great time on the PhD, learning so much. And I get to have another domain that's like outside of what I've been doing in computer science. And also, it's still got the music element there as well because it's like music
Mhm.
venues. So I'm like, yeah, it's insane. But that's
Yeah,
where I am now.
as soon as I saw the articles that you sent over and was like, oh, hearing loss, oh, music, oh wait, this is I know these things. Like not obviously not at your level, but I also my first 2 degrees were in music. I have a bachelor's and a master's in vocal performance. I was in
Wow.
orchestra all like started orchestra at 8 years old, all the way through to my second year of undergrad because I went in on a cello scholarship
Mhm.
and then realized I hate cello. What am I doing? Like, and then switched to voice. Um, but yeah, I always joke that because I was in orchestra, I have terrible hearing because it's just so loud all
It's
the
so loud,
time.
yeah.
And you're rehearsing in these tiny little rooms that it's just like if you were in a concert hall rehearsing in an orchestra, fine. Like it's not going to be like concentrated sound going directly into your ears. But when you have a brass section
Oh my
in a
gosh.
tiny little rehearsal
Percussion
room, it's
sections?
just,
Oh my
oh my God.
gosh.
So yeah, I was so excited to read the articles and see what you were researching. So you're you're specifically looking in how to collate data in a standardized format
Yeah.
for hearing for sound levels, sorry.
Yeah.
where did that idea come from? Because I feel like when you think about hearing loss, you're just the immediate assumption is, okay, we're going to be measuring decibels and we're going to, like, there must be some kind of standardized thing already.
You would think
So
so.
like, why why wasn't there?
Yeah. So I remember when I first started, and the original plan was, which my next project is going to be based on, was to build an app to like sort of measure sound levels through your phone. So I started a PhD
Mm.
with that in mind. And then my supervisor was like, actually, we realized there's no actual standardized way to store these decibels. So it would be really cool if you could build something like that. And that would be a good first project to get started with. So I had a lot of reading and I was thinking, oh, wow, like with all the sound level data we have, you would think there's a way to organize it such that people from
Yeah.
different countries can like analyze the data from like another country and see how they measure up. But in a lot of papers, they have to do separate analysis on different countries. Like some countries use commas instead of decimal points and things like that. So there's so many different
Mm.
standardizations within these countries, but there's no one whole standard that everyone could use. So the project was basically to come up with a way to combine that and to build it using Python such that people can use it if they're measuring sound levels. And then somebody from one country can look at another sound level data and be like, oh, actually, this makes sense. I can take this and create a graph from it.
That is, I feel like that's one of the biggest things that threw me off when I moved to Europe was the sudden switch from decimals to commas, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, wait, but the price of this isn't
Yeah,
2,800, like
exactly.
why why is there a comma there?
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess the data collection is much more like a basic thing that needs to be figured out across the board that I just have never considered. And that's probably an issue in a lot of data collection, that there isn't standardized information across the board.
Yeah, I was reading a lot of papers outside of just sound level monitoring because I've got the computer science background. I looked at just how do people store data in general, and that was a whole stream of like people having to create customized data formats that only worked for their company. And it wasn't until recently that they come up with a way to like have an organized format, and then you have SQL and all these different tools that now help you query data. But before then, that wasn't really a thing. So you're thinking, how are people collecting all this data, but you can't consolidate everything together?
Oh, it makes me think of, like, in true crime, they're always talking about how it's an issue because the different police departments across state lines don't really, or across city lines, don't talk to each other because their systems are different. And then so things go wrong for years and years and years because no one has a way to cross reference anything, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just kind of isolated information. And part of me, and I mean, with my own uh uh PhD proposal that I'm working on, it is very similar in that I'm looking at all of these different disciplines and saying, this is a common thread, this is a thing we need to talk about and name, because so many people are talking about the same things, but no one's talking to each other about this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so encouraging to see other people thinking about that and realizing, okay, we need to, if we're a global community now, we need
Yeah.
to figure out some globalized ways of discussing things.
Yeah, otherwise, like we can't consolidate the insights. Like one country is doing this, another country is doing that. How do we know why they're doing these things if we can't understand the data, right?
Yeah. It really makes me think think about that whole, like, we talk about the internet as this globalized whole, that we're all so connected and we all have access to each other's information, and so therefore we can learn and grow together. But that can't happen if people are talking about things in different ways,
Mm-hmm.
and things are in different languages, and papers aren't being translated either data wise or language wise. I ran into some of that in my master's because I wanted to make sure that I was looking at my topic from not just a Western point of view. And so I was trying to look up papers from some professors in Turkey and some professors in Africa, and just all over the place. And the papers just weren't translated. And so I knew there was information there, but I couldn't get to it.
Yeah.
It's so exciting to see people thinking about that and being like, okay, wait, we're all talking about the same thing, but no one's
Yeah.
saying it in the same way.
Yeah, like let's come to a conclusion first and then build upon that to then go, okay, how can we solve this problem? How can we solve that problem?
Yeah, exactly. So what are some of the things specifically that you're trying to collect data on?
So the model was built to work in amplified music venues because safe listening music venues is very broad. As you said,
Mhm.
orchestras and all these different things. But my project in particular focuses on amplified music venues, so clubs and gig venues, because they tend to be really loud and the main attendees of these are young people. So
Mhm.
I think in 2022, the World Health Organization released a set of guidelines for safe listening, and they predict like over like 1 billion young people are going to be at risk of hearing loss due to recreational settings such as music venues. So my project is kind of trying to target that demographic and to see how we can either make these music venues safer or educate young people such that they know what the risks are when it comes to attending these, how long you're there for, and what you can do whilst you're there. So the data model works with trying to do sound measuring in these music venues, and you can store them and it will give you the times of like when the event started, when it ended, the location, so you can know, okay, was this individual here? What would their sound exposure be, for example? And things like that. So the idea is that with this, you'll be able to, let's say if somebody was in a music venue, you would know, okay, they were in this area, we can calculate what the sound exposure was and how would that impact them going forward, sort of thing.
So are we something that I was wondering as I was reading the articles you sent was the kind of data point of how many people are possibly going to be dealing with this in the future. Has
Yeah.
there been any research? Because I'm just thinking back to my own childhood and thinking about the 80s and the 90s. I wasn't alive in the 80s, but the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s and the really tiny like punk venues that people were in like night after night after night. And like when I was in the nightclubs 5 nights a week dancing with friends in Seattle and things like that, has there been any kind of data collection? Is better question, is it possible to do that kind of retroactive data collection on these generations that have been in that situation for a long time and use that as a way to kind of gauge, like referencing it against new data with younger kids and gauge what that's going to look like for them? Or how does that work?
Yeah, so that's another thing we're looking at because there are some longitudinal studies that look at like people who have been to music venues a lot and seeing how that changes over a few years. I think one of the biggest problems with hearing loss is that you don't see the signs instantly, especially for young
Mm.
people. They can go to these venues, go to really loud places, and nothing will happen until they're much older. So these studies
Mm-hmm.
have to take several years before you can see what's going to happen, which I think as a PhD student, it's something I spoke about with my supervisor. It's just so long of a period that it wouldn't fit in the 3 years that I
Yeah.
have to study something. But it is something that would really help with understanding the effects of noise induced hearing loss. But it's just having that long period to like look at. So it's hard.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've started to realize I don't go out to clubs very often myself anymore, because I can't hear people when I'm in clubs anymore.
Mm,
Like I can't delineate between the voices and the music and all of that.
mm,
Like it's just all like all mush, all ear mush at this
yeah.
point. And I'm sure it comes from years and years of being around loud music, and my ears are just like, enough, we're done, please get out. Um, but something that new generations are dealing with that the articles talked about that we didn't have to deal with in the same way is personal listening devices and like
Yes.
earbuds and things like that. Because we had, I guess Walkmans did have a weird kind of early earbud
Mm,
option in the 90s, but it wasn't that great. They didn't go all the way into your ear. They still kind of used the like shape of your ear to amplify.
yeah.
So how does your data collection shift or allow for conversations about headphone use versus venues and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so that's a big thing because my project focuses more on people who attend music venues, but there is a whole thing about like personal listening devices and how that is honestly somehow worse, I think, than music venues, because at least with a music venue, you can somewhat control how many times you go to music venue, and that's more on the
Mhm.
individual. But with personal listening devices, the average person's listening to music when they're commuting, when they're doing tasks and things, like they're listening to so much music at volumes that they themselves can increase. It's really,
Mhm.
really hard. So, and like reading the papers on it, I'm like, oh my gosh, like comparing that alongside with music venue data is really hard to incorporate that when you're looking at sound exposure in music venues. You have to consider, okay, these people might also be listening to their phones
Mhm.
every morning. So how do you quantify that effect, if that makes
Yeah.
sense? It's something that's quite interesting, but it's not really been done.
Yeah, and I was kind of thinking about my own usage as I was reading these. I tend to internalize a lot of the things that I read. I guess that's good as someone who wants to go into this, but um thinking about like if there's just like ambient sound or I'm watching TV or something, the volume is very low for me. Like I can listen to like watch a TV show, I tend to put the captions on, then keep the volume really low just because any kind of show nowadays, the equalizers are weird and the like
Mm,
music's louder than the talking and the sound effects are like, so I just kind of keep the volume low, but then I put in my headphones and I've noticed that especially if I'm like walking down the street, the volume is all the way up,
mm,
and because I'm like trying to block everything else out. So it feels like that's such a it feels opposite from what it should be. Like it seems like if you're feeding sound directly into your ears with headphones, you would think it would be quieter and then the TV would be louder. So yeah, I can imagine that that would create a lot of issue for people trying to
yeah.
study venues because you're dealing with people who are listening to music on the daily, probably most of every day. Um, and it's throwing your data off because can't you can't tell people no music unless you're in a venue.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's kind of where looking at specific genres come into play, because there's certain genres that
Yeah.
you can kind of tell that there's a lot of studies on, like, oh, the kind of people that attend orchestra music versus like going to rock concerts. You can kind of
Mhm.
tell the demographic of people whether they listen to music on their devices or not. And that's kind of where that's kind of the new sort of thing that's being looked at. I literally read a paper a few days ago about, they did a study with people who went to rock concerts, and they tried to ask them what do they think about using earplugs and things like that, and a lot of them weren't too keen on it, didn't think it was very useful
Mhm.
for them. And then if you go to like other genres, you would realize that people are a lot more responsive to them. I
Mhm.
think especially in orchestral settings, I think people are more aware of how loud orchestras are. So it's quite
Yeah.
interesting seeing how different genres have different perceptions of like hearing conservation.
Well, and I wonder if it's part of the culture of those different genres too.
Yeah,
Like rock and roll and punk and EDM are much more like the people are there to feel it in their
yeah.
bodies, and so they want it to be louder and they don't want to save their hearing by putting in earplugs and things because that would change the feeling of it, versus an audience that's going to an opera or an orchestra or a ballet. You're used to, I'm sitting here, I'm just enjoying the overall experience of it, so it changes your willingness to participate in saving your hearing.
Yeah, there's that. And there's also like education levels play a big role too. That's kind of one of the things I've
Mm,
seen. So people who are more highly educated already know about the impacts of hearing loss. So they're more likely to wear earplugs. But those who aren't kind of see earplugs as an inconvenience, especially because a lot of earplugs, when they were first created, they were really bad at their
yeah.
job. And you couldn't, like, the quality was just objectively worse. So a lot of people think earplugs just make the sound worse and they don't want to wear them. But a lot of research has been
Mm.
put into them and they're a lot better nowadays, but people don't really know that. So they still think earplugs are bad. I don't want to use them, but actually they're fine and you can enjoy music now. But people have that perception in their head and that prevents them from even engaging with using earplugs.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of ads. Maybe I'm just being targeted by these ads, but a lot more ads for like the type of earplugs that filter out specific decibel levels. So you can still
Yeah.
hear through them, but at a certain level it just cuts it off and is like, no, you're going to be hurt. Like
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah, it's quite difficult to create earplugs for different, once again, genres exist in different frequencies as well. So an earplug
Mm-hmm.
that's great for orchestra music, not so great for rock music. So there's research into looking at custom fit earplugs depending on your hearing levels too, because that will influence how the earplug works. If you've not got hearing loss, but you've got maybe dips in certain frequencies, the earplug's going to only impact those frequencies more. So then you're not going to hear them as well if you're going to a concert or something.
I also noticed in the studies that there was a difference between, and this is just my gender studies brain working, but there's a difference between women and men who were pulled in these things, and how men didn't
Yeah.
notice loud volumes as much or didn't care as much as women did. And I'm wondering if there's a biological component to that, or if it's just a sociological component of just like men are not going to let their stubborn, like their hubris, say no, the music's too loud, we need to take
Yeah.
care of it. Like I wonder what that is.
Yeah, that's been quite interesting to read. And I think in a lot of studies, it's been like, yeah, women are a lot more receptive to like wearing their plugs and things, but there's not really been a concrete reason why. So I don't know if
Mm,
that's something that needs to be read into more, because I read another paper that was suggesting that oh, it was something to do with like when venues provide like alcohol and things, like people tend to oh, what was it? The like people, I think it's that either people stay in venues longer if they're drinking or sort of thing, or like hearing exposure gets worse because they're drinking more,
interesting.
that sort of thing. And that was quite interesting to read. So I don't know if there's maybe like a financial element to venues like wanting to serve alcohol because people tend to like stay in the venues longer and thus hearing exposure gets worse.
I mean, as someone who performed in nightclubs for years, I could tell you that we were definitely told to keep people drinking as much as possible because it keeps them in the venue longer. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely a thing.
Yeah.
But that's interesting that not only does drinking inhibit uh your critical thinking in terms of existing in the group of people, but also like you stop thinking about the impacts of the volume on your ears.
Yeah.
Good old alcohol. We love it. So so where do you see this study going? Like what do you hope for with creating this standardized system? Like what's your goal with it?
I think the main thing would be to consolidate a lot of existing sound data that's not really been interpreted into this data model, so that we can see if there's any trends, see if there's anything that like could be interesting in terms of how loud do sound levels get when an event is starting versus when it's ending. And the idea that I have with the data model is that one of the things we've noticed is that sound levels are important to know in terms of knowing if there's sound explosion things, but they only tell one side of the story. So one of my
Mm,
supervisors does a lot of work on understanding why we can't just take a sound level and be like, this venue was this loud, because it doesn't incorporate the different frequencies in which it was loud and how long it was loud
mm,
for. So that's kind of where we have to talk to audience members and think, okay, how do they feel about the sound levels? Which kind of goes into a bit of like psychoacoustics, because some people, if you give someone two people the same sound, for one person it's loud, another person it's not. So then we have to ask them what is loud, what isn't loud, and how does that impact how they feel about music venues alongside the sound level data that we have. So that's kind of where I'm heading to next with my next project.
that's I've never heard someone say the word psychoacoustic, and that just like lit up every part of my brain. That's really fascinating. Do you think there's maybe a connection in terms of those different music cultures and
Mhm.
what sound levels they're willing to be around, or like adaptive sound levels?
Ooh, honestly, not sure. I have no idea. Psychology is a very interesting field, and I think a good amount of my PhD is going to go into that. But I don't know much about what specific levels people like and what they don't like, because there's so many different factors that influence it.
Oh, for sure. I guess I'm wondering, like, especially if you're like a rock music lover or a punk music
Yeah.
lover, something with a lot of those like sustained high sound
Oh
levels.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
If you listen to that kind of music because you enjoy that level of decibel,
Yeah.
um that was a weird way to say that, but because you enjoy that sensation, that you're willing to put your ears at risk because of the kind of music. I mean, I'm thinking of it as a vocalist, in that, like, as someone who's trained classically, I always would tell my students, you can sing anything you want. You just have to understand that certain kinds of singing are going to shorten your career
Mm,
because it's
of
going
what
to be
is
harder
involved.
on you.
Yeah.
So I almost wonder if, because of the culture around those types of music, that people are more willing to take that risk and maybe shorten their span of time to enjoy it in that way because they enjoy it.
Yeah, I think that is definitely at play. There was a paper I read on the neuroscience of why young people like loud sounds, and a lot of it is a mix of peer pressure. So their friends also go into concerts and they want to be a part of it, and also like being in a loud music venue releases endorphins, and it's like sort of like a risk-taking, sensation-feeling behavior. So young people just love the idea of like being in those places, despite knowing that the impacts of this are going to be terrible when they're older. So it's really hard
Mm-hmm.
to, and it's the paper was basically saying we can't just tell young people not to go to these venues or that,
Yeah.
you know, try and avoid it because they don't care, is the thing. We need to
I
try and
mean,
educate them on a different level.
I feel like that's most of being a young person right there, is this
Yeah,
is going to be bad for you and this is going to cause this, and oh, I don't care.
that's the
I'll deal with that
thing.
when it happens.
Yeah, so it's really hard to think about how to help them in a way that they can still enjoy these music venues whilst not making them think they can't do anything, which is sort of
Mm,
where my project comes in, with being like, okay, let's find out what is causing these issues and how can we sort of help the music venues on that side try and
mhm.
make it better rather than trying to help you on an individual level as well.
I almost wonder if part of that could be research into new amplification devices.
Mm.
Like, I know a lot. I mean, my background is classical again. So, like, I've actually only ever been to one rock concert, and it was the Newsboys, and it was at the fair. And I don't think that was a good
Yeah.
example. But I know a lot of classical venues, because they were built with aesthetics in mind rather than acoustics.
Mm.
A lot of them have systems of microphones and amplification where it's just ambient amplification around the venue, so that it allows you to hear all of the music, but it's not like blasting directly into your ears. So I wonder if some research could be done into new forms of amplification that aren't just direct, here's all of the sound, go for it, and is more
Yeah.
strategic.
Yeah, there's some work on it already actually on like placement of speakers. So some research
Mm,
suggests that like having speakers above your head is a lot better than on the ground because you
mm,
can feel it on the ground if it's on the ground, and also just the sound exposure is closer to someone standing versus if the speaker's up there and you're standing here, it's not going to hit you on the sort of thing. So there's quite a lot of
yeah.
work in that, and it's quite useful. I think one of the things that I've realized within it is that there is the element of if your venue is larger, they've got more space to fill, and also there's more things they can do to make the venue safer because there's just more space for the sound to bounce off of. So as you were saying before, when you're in a small space, there's only so much you can do when the sound is really
Yeah.
loud. You can try and position the speaker anyhow, but the room is too small ultimately.
Hmm.
And also smaller venues don't tend to have the same kind of budget for this sort of thing as a larger venue. So that plays a role too.
Exactly. Well, and a lot of the kind of loud music that we're talking about, I feel like an 80-year-old being like, that kind of music is terrible for kids. But but I I feel like a lot of the venues that rock groups and punk groups and EDM, those venues use more industrial settings and tend to not have the, like, thought put into acoustics that
Mm.
perhaps other genres use, and so they have to use that kind of extreme amplification just to get the music to occur. Not to mention that
Yeah.
the instruments also are created with electronics in their design, so you can't just play the instrument and have it be heard. It has to go through some form of amplification.
Yeah, that's a big problem as well. So it's hard to balance like okay, we need the sound to fill the space, but also we don't want the sound to be so loud that
Mhm.
people's ears are being damaged. And some of the research I've read was that because there's the front of house, usually the mixing desk that can control the volumes, but usually the sound coming into that is already too loud anyway. There's only so
Mhm.
much the mixing desk can do to reduce that. So it's kind of hard to be like, oh yeah, just put the volume down on that. And it's like, well, the volume
Yeah.
going into that is already too loud.
Well, because if the mixer is trying to compress the music, it's going to change the sound and
Yes,
it's going to
exactly.
make it sound tinny and gross. And then no one's going to want to stay at the concert.
Yeah, and then that's why you get the white noise and the distorted sound because it's trying to like force its way down and it's just messing with the sound quality itself.
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid in church and the first thoughts of, oh, maybe we should put like a baffle in front of the drums became a thing, and then all of a sudden every church had a baffle in front of their drums and no one really knew why, and some of them were really terribly created and it didn't really do anything. So it's yeah, it's interesting to think about all of the ways that people are like, I'm sure this helps, maybe we should do it. Like they're aware of it but they're not aware to the point of knowing how to fix the problem.
Yeah, I've been noticing that too. I've also seen some churches they have like a separate room for the
Mm-hmm.
drummer as well as like just it's like you would
But
think
then there's a
okay
problem because you're actually having to pipe in the sound and then it's
yeah
creating extra amplification. Like,
you're thinking guys
you're on the right track, but that was the wrong
yeah
choice.
yeah like the right working out but let's go back to
Good job. We're proud of you. Now try
yeah
again. So, okay. So going back to to data collection and standardizing, what are some ways that you've found that you have been able to easily standardize um the data points, or if there is an easy way, but how are you standardizing these data points?
For the most part, a lot of the definitions of like different decibel levels, that is well standardized, which is really helpful. So I don't have to deal with
Mm,
like, oh, this sound level is like an equalized level, or if it's like a peak or all these different things. There's already a lot of documentation on that that people use. So my
mhm.
data model just uses what's already there and also like tries to, if there's some terms that people use for different things, it just establishes one definition for it so that everyone can agree on that, which is quite helpful. And within that as well, because all these levels are defined already, it helps with just knowing that like someone from another country who maybe uses different levels can understand, oh, this is the level that we're referring to here, if that makes
Mm,
sense. And
yeah.
I think outside of that, we've got things like using if when I've been reading the papers for sound levels, I see common terms like front of house and things like that. So I include those terms in the data model so that people know what terms to refer to in things. I think that's been
Mhm.
the biggest part of the project, just making sure that I'm not just building this for a fun thing, but like people can understand, okay, this is what this term means, this is what this is doing, and everyone can kind of understand how it works.
Yeah, I would assume there are probably a lot of theater terms and a lot of like a lot of the
Yeah,
techie terms that have found their way into it.
a lot of like sound engineering terms as well, because that's kind of what that links into, right? Acoustics and making sure the venue
Mhm.
is safe. There's a lot of terms there within that, like the sound monitor that's used, the speakers, all these different things, the size of the venue, the capacity, the amount of people that were there, because that can very much influence the sound levels too.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah, it always blows my mind when I would be in rehearsal for something and everyone's like, "Oh, this is really loud," and then you get a full audience in, and
and
then
then it's
all of a
like,
sudden it's like quiet, and you're like, "Shoot, I have to readjust everything."
oh my gosh, yeah. I was singing in choir and like when we're rehearsing the choir, it's like, oh yeah, we're so loud and everything. And then you go on the final day for the concert and they're like, you need to sing very loud so the people at the back can hear you.
Yeah. Or like there were times I went on tour with my choir in college and we went down to Argentina, and a lot of our venues were these really old churches, but some of them were made out of stone and some were made out of concrete and some were made out of wood, and it was the like difference that we had to make in volume and articulation and such,
Mm.
or really having to watch our director, because in a huge cathedral that sound is bouncing off of everything, so
Yeah,
you can't trust what your ears are telling you. You have to just follow a single like conductor telling you
yeah.
this is the
That's where you
this is the beat.
Yeah, that was a big thing in orchestras. It's in really big orchestras. I think if they're very close to the back, because of how the sound travels, they have to play
Hmm.
earlier than the people near the front because if they play on time, they're late by the time the sound
Yeah.
comes across. And that's so insane to me. Like, and it's important why you have to follow the conductor, right? Because
Well, then I even saw, speaking of all of this, I just recently saw on Broadway, there's a show called Maybe Happy Ending. Um, and the orchestra for it is not in the pit or on the stage. They're
mm-hmm.
like in the like dressing rooms up at
Oh
the top
gosh.
of the theater. Like they're like 5 levels up from the stage. And there's like 2 people in one room and 3 people in another,
In
and the
oh
conductor's in another, and they're all just watching a
watching
monitor.
yeah.
And I was just like, this, that would be hell. Like,
Yeah.
not
That is
only
just
on the players, but also on the people like sound mixing for the audience, because you're
oh
having to mix people from 6 different rooms
six into one
a
place.
into one place where people are paying hundreds of dollars to see a
Oh
show.
my
Like
gosh.
the
Not to
amount
mention the
of
delay in the
stress.
monitor too, as well. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just like, how do you even coordinate that? Like, one of them might be getting the conductor at like a certain point and another point because these things are never like at the same time, right?
Oh yeah, never. Never. Oh my god. Like the behind the scenes tech of that would just drive me crazy. Like I
Yeah.
saw 30 seconds of the video. It's like, no, I need to move on because I'm gonna get stressed out and I haven't even
Oh,
watched the show.
yeah.
So like technology is amazing, but I think sometimes we go a little too far and over
Yeah.
engineer.
We do sometimes like this. And like, as a computer science person, I'm always like, guys, we can go back to the basics. You know,
Yeah.
bring back buttons, please. Not everything needs a touch screen.
No, sometimes we just want that click wheel. Just
Yeah,
give us a click
give
wheel.
me the button, give me the things I can.
So tell me more about how computer science worked into this, and you're kind of switching from music to computer science. What was that like?
Um, honestly, it's interesting because a lot of people think they're two very different fields, but to me they're very similar because a lot of the
Mm,
stuff I learned in music transferred well into computer science. So I'm in music, I was more of a like performer, but then I learned to compose, and the composition side of music was what kind of helped me understand the tech because when you're
okay.
composing, you're using technologies on software. So
Yeah.
like I could understand, okay, this is why this is doing this to the music and things like that. And I found computer science really interesting in the way it like processes sound and how everything is literally a zero and a one. That kind of just excited me and was just like, that's so cool. But I thought, honestly, I just found that I could do more in computer science, if that makes sense. Like,
Mm,
I love music as a creative field, as something to do, like, to express my creativity. But I found that in computer science, I could just like come up with an app idea and just build it. And like, that could just
mm,
exist. And that was so exciting to me. And like, I could bring in, like, if I wanted to create an app that like takes in some song and changes it up, I could just do that. I could like change sounds in a way that like was really interesting to me. And I just found that quite interesting, like combining those two subjects together.
mm.
So yeah, I don't know, like computer science is so cool. Like there's just so much you can do with it.
I mean, I remember very rudimentary learning how to use synthesizers, and not like keyboard synthesizers, but like actual like changing the shape of the wave and the
Mm,
gains and moving the, I'm forgetting all the terms now, but like actually in like music theory, having to learn how to use those things, it's very technical and it doesn't
yeah.
feel like music at the time. And then all of a sudden you press a button and the whole thing happens and you're
Yeah.
like, oh wow, I just made something.
Yeah, I think people really underestimate the amount of tech experience you need as a musician. I think like there is the element of
Mm,
like, yes, musicians are creative people, but I think understanding the technicalities of music theory and being able to apply
yeah.
that is its own thing in itself. And I think that's what's helped me in computer science because computer science is the same thing. You learn the fundamentals and then you can do everything you want, essentially.
Yeah. I think a lot of people hear electronic music and they think, "Oh, you just have a keyboard in front of you or an electric guitar and you play it and that's the electronic music." When in reality it's like, yes, here's all of these composers who pioneered electronic music and created synthesizers,
Yeah,
plugging things into
literally,
different
yeah. The
places. And
frequencies that they use and things like
it's crazy. I mean,
the
I remember what I learned about Wendy Carlos, who created the synthesizer along with Mr. Moog. I never remember his first name, but when she was talking about recording her first album on a synthesizer, she had to record it literally one note at a time
oh my gosh.
because every note required a different patch and required her to change the cables and the shape of the sine wave, or the shape of the sine wave, and just all of these things. It's just, there's so much going on behind the
Yeah. You
scenes.
look at how like where music composition started from and where it is now with music production, you're like, how did
Yeah.
we get here? How did we get to the point where somebody can plug in a keyboard and just play notes and it shows
Go.
up on the synthesizer?
Yeah.
It's like you don't know where we started.
Yeah. And then thinking about entire like film scores that were
Oh
written
my god.
electronically, and sound effects even now that are made without. I remember in music theory, when we were learning about electronic music, we were tasked with taking like an already made animated short off of YouTube and then creating a soundtrack and
Mm.
sound effects for it as an assignment, not to like publish anywhere, but just to like
Yeah.
as an assignment. And we weren't allowed to use any practical sound effects. So if we needed a sound effect, we
You have to
had to
create
figure
it.
out,
Oh,
yeah, we had to create it in the synthesizer. So I remember like sitting there figuring out how to make like a helicopter sound with like a key, like pressing the key and a helicopter sound happens.
yeah.
And not that I could do that anymore, but just there's so much math and there's so many like,
Yeah.
it's crazy. So I can imagine the connection between music and computer science just kind of smoothly transitioned from one to the
Yeah,
other.
pretty much. It's just like in computer science, there's things like learning the fundamentals, the binary, the coding and stuff. And then you get to the upper end, especially now with like AIs, I feel like, where are we? And like, it's like how did we get here?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about AI because I feel like I
That's
feel like
fine.
every timeline is talking about it, and I'm just like, y'all, it's really not that new of a system.
Oh
We've
my
had it
gosh.
we've had it for decades.
This
It's
is
been
why, like, when I
used
see
successfully for
videos
decades.
that like I don't like AI, it's like, okay, Siri. like
So you don't like 3/4 of the things you do in your life? Like
like people think ChatGPT is the epitome of AI, and it's like AI was like if you go to like the 1900s,
like
like
did
as a
you
comp sci person, I'm just
did you enjoy watching The Lord of the Rings? So half of what Weta Workshop did was create new AI models that allowed them to just create hordes of armies. They didn't do those individually and have actual armies. That was
oh
an
my
AI
gosh.
model.
Like so many films, I think like Lion King, the Stampede film was literally a computer
Yeah.
program. Like
Yeah.
they generated each of those. Like I'm like, guys,
Just because you think, because you have a chatbot now that does a different kind of AI doesn't mean that all AI is evil and all AI has been killing our planet since the beginning. No, it's just this new one that people have done incorrectly.
yeah,
Thank
it's just
you.
one iteration. It's probably like the entire like yeah, it's been so frustrating seeing on my timeline. People be like, AI is so bad. I'm like, guys,
Yeah.
do you want to go back to
And this is why we have to be so careful with the language that we use to describe things, because generative AI and chatbots are very, very different
mm,
than AI programs that we've been using previously.
yeah.
And neither of those are HAL from uh uh uh, uh what's the word I'm looking for? 2001: A Space Odyssey. No, we don't have that. That doesn't exist.
yeah.
Computers can't actually take off without us.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's like I think the whole thing with like news articles like humanizing ChatGPT as well is like a whole thing. It's like it's not a it is a set of if statements being like
Yeah.
it's predicting like
It's also someone on the other end programming it to say things. And
yeah,
I mean, I had to talk about that in my master's thesis because I was looking at algorithms. Algorithms are also a form of AI, and what they do is they just dehumanize the computing system, so you think that it's just this like inhuman machine churning out information and moving things around, when really there's a person on the other end that's programming it, and then it is just allowing you to forget that fact, so you think that it's
Yeah.
unbiased, when really there's a
It is
lot of bias
very
that goes
biased.
into it.
Oh my gosh, so biased. Like, at the end of the day, these models can only be as good as the data they're trained on. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
data is very biased. So it's only going to replicate that bias when you use these chatbots. And that's what people need to understand when they're like, AI is all bad. It's like, no, the data it's been trained on is very biased.
Yeah,
And you're seeing that bias in real time, which is why you can't just take what ChatGPT says and go, oh my gosh, that's all. And it's like, no, you have to think,
it
please.
doesn't even work as a search engine like people are saying that it does, because it the searches are still biased and it's still spitting out wrong information because there are people on the other end giving it wrong information.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It's hard. It's hard because people don't really understand that these AI models are like just
Yeah,
yeah.
but I mean, in your research, how are some of those things helping you, and how are some of those things hindering your study and your data?
Um so I'm trying to think. There is like when I was looking at potential projects to do, there was some things on like machine learning to do like real time. So like if the sound level was going really high, you could kind of predict when it's going really high, which I
Mm-hmm.
thought was kind of cool. And I was like, there's some cool applications of like machine learning here, but at the moment, it's still the whole GPT chatbot thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's I don't think that's going to fit with my PhD at the moment and with the
Yeah,
domain of sound monitoring and things like that. But
I mean, it's
it,
still very rudimentary.
yeah, it's still very like this is bare bones is the thing. Like everyone's using their minds, and this is just like on a fundamental basis is just doing a probability scale of what the next word should be based on a set of different
Mm,
things, and that is all it's doing. So I think I'm just trying to see how that algorithm itself is going to develop over time before I decide to like
mm,
engage with it further. But it is hard because a lot of especially in computer science now, a lot of grants and funding for comp sci research is very like AI, because that's the
yeah.
thing now. So everyone's like, how do I tailor my work to AI? How do we go into AI? And I'm just kind of like, okay, but first of all, can I add AI to my work to begin with? I don't want to just jump
Yeah.
ship into the AI
Can
world,
we
you know?
figure out the data first?
Yeah, like can we understand what we're doing with this AI before we just go, oh yeah, add AI and you can go to do any like research things. Like I don't want to just mess around with technology because it exists is the thing.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way with a lot of things, in that it takes me back to when I was a kid and I had math teachers telling me, you won't always have a calculator. And it's true. Like, you need to learn the basics of
Mhm.
of something first, and then you can add the extra new tools on top of it, because then at least you know if something goes wrong with that tool, you know where to take a step back to and fix that problem so the tool can help you again.
Yeah, this is an important thing because when it comes to like literature reviews, I've been seeing so many. My TikTok feed is full of like this people being like, another, use this. And I'm just kind of like, guys, I'm not using AI to read papers.
Yeah.
Like the whole
Oh,
point of reading papers is to understand what they've done. If an AI tells you the bullet points, you've not understood the paper.
yeah. Well, there's a huge difference between taking in information and synthesizing information,
Yeah,
and a lot of those tools can't synthesize the information for you. Like, you have to actively engage with what
yeah,
you're
you have to engage with the
researching.
paper. Yeah, you have to read the paper. You can't just give AI the paper and be like, read it for me. It's like you're not reading it then.
Yeah. No, there are only a couple times where I've used it, and it's literally just like, I literally need bullet points because I'm going into, not this interview, but like on a previous podcast, if I would interview someone that had written several books, and I was like,
Yeah,
I cannot physically read 5 books
yeah,
before this interview. Could you give me a brief synopsis of each of these books just to tell me the general storyline? And that's
yeah,
that's all I need from you. But
yeah,
yeah, the whole conversation feels very much like early 2000s teachers being like, you can't use Wikipedia for researching because it's evil, and it it doesn't do anything for you. And now Wikipedia is just like a background tool that we all kind of are like, okay, it's not the best information, but at the bottom of the page there are references that we can use to get our research rolling if we need to, and we're stuck. And I'm so waiting for that day when ChatGPT becomes that like background tool that people are like,
Yeah.
okay, I could use this maybe as like a starting point, and then I know all these other tools that will get me to where I need to
This is
go.
exactly how I see it. Like, I think it's been the problem now is that the discussions become so binary that if you're pro AI, you're seen as some monster. And if you're
Yeah.
like anti AI, it's the thing is both extremes are like terrible. But I think the problem is just like people need to understand what AI is, first of all, in terms of these
Yeah.
generative AI and chatbots, and understand that to me is a tool. And if you
Yeah.
want to make the argument that AI is destroying our planet, then that's an argument that has to be made with all of technology at that point, is the thing. You can't
Yeah.
choose ChatGPT to make the environmental argument when iPhones, MacBooks, all these e-waste in general exists, is
Yeah.
the thing.
Oh, that conversation just opens up a wide door of me being frustrated with the systems that
Yeah.
are at play that could actually change things, and instead they're blaming the consumer
Yeah.
for
Oh my
the
gosh.
issues. And it's like, it's not the consumer. Like, at this point, yes, consumers have agency, but the corporations that are giving us limited choices are really the ones at fault, because
Yeah.
there's like, sure, we could make better choices, but the best choices are going to be made once the corporations start actually taking care of things.
Yeah,
Ooh.
there's only so much you can like blame the individual for these things at the end of the day,
Yeah.
right? Like, yeah, the whole there's no ethical consumption under capitalism is a thing, right? Like, you
Yeah.
have to decide how you navigate these things, but to be like, oh, the people using AI are the bad person, when corporates thrown so much money at AI, they've kind of shoved it in your face. Like,
Yeah.
what did you guys expect to happen? Is the thing.
Well, and there's no getting away from it at the moment because of that. Like,
Yeah,
every single program we use is like, okay, well, I can Google something, but it's going to automatically search it in Gemini. And it's like,
yeah.
I didn't ask you to do that. I don't want that. I don't want the AI summary of
I
what
want
I'm
the
looking for.
websites.
Yeah, I want the websites that are researched and people are
Yeah.
actively adding to them. Yeah, it's the illusion of choice is what's killing society, not the AI.
Yeah.
Which is why though research like yours is really important, because then we can look and see the standardized data across the globe and
Yeah.
see that baseline. Like, that's what we
Yes.
really need from research right now, is baseline information in order to make this global online world real and tangible and useful across the board.
That is it, right? We need to have an agreed upon like what is going on right now first before we can go, oh, let's solve this problem that actually the data only applies to this country because they have different views on sound health and things versus another place. You have to understand what is it overall. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so it's so wild to me that it's 2025 and we're just now thinking about standardizing
Yeah.
data points across the globe. Like, the internet has been public since 1989. Like, if I guess it took us a certain amount of time because social media didn't exist till like 2006 or like 2004, and so we didn't really get to think about the world as a global community until then. But still, like,
You
that's
would think
almost
it's
20
already been
years.
done. But then again,
Yeah.
I look at the research world, and one of the things that like I've been told is that people who have coding skills and like going into research, that's a whole thing because researchers don't really have many coders in the field because you've
Yeah.
got industry on one hand charging like crazy money basically versus academia, which doesn't pay as well. So coders are
Yeah.
going to just go, I'm going to go industry. So then to me,
Mm.
I like research and I like knowing that I can use my skills to solve these problems. But then I remember there's not many of me in research.
Yeah.
So like even when thinking about hearing sciences and like the domain that I'm in, I speak to my supervisors and they're like, yeah, there's not many computer scientists in this domain. Like
Mm-mm.
if you're a computer scientist, if you're even going to do research, you probably do computer science research, not like research here. So it then
Yeah.
makes you think, oh, actually, in fairness, I can understand why we're in this position where there should be more standardization, but they need someone who has the tech skills to do it. And you don't have enough time to learn it if you're not like got the tech experience, right?
Yeah, I think that's something that this podcast is definitely highlighting a lot, is the need for interdisciplinary skills and the
Oh
need
my gosh, yeah.
for different departments to talk to each other.
Yes.
And that's one reason why I love gender studies so much, is because it basically umbrellas the entire university and is like, we can pull from science, we can pull from math, we can pull from all of the, like, computer science, we can pull from history, we can pull from English, like all of these departments all kind of meeting in one place. And all of a sudden you're talking about, like, wait, why isn't this kind of data collected in this way? Why can't we do this thing? How do we get this information out? And we're in a world where we're like on the verge of realizing that everyone needs to talk to everyone.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm realizing too. Like when I applied for the PhD, they wanted someone who's interdisciplinary, and I'm thinking, yeah, you actually do need to talk to other people outside of just
Yeah.
like my research. Kind of like I speak to audiologists, I speak to like psychologists, I speak to all these different sound engineers. Like
Oh yeah.
you need to speak to everybody because these people have different views of the same problem, but that's how you understand the problem, right?
Exactly. Oh my God. When I was in my first master's degree, getting my master's in vocal performance, I had to take advanced vocal pedagogy, which wasn't, we went into the class thinking, oh, we're going to learn how to teach students how to sing. When in reality, our professor was like, okay, here's this physics book. I need you to read. We're going to memorize the muscles in the human body. You're going to have to know every single bone. You're going to have to know all of these tendons and things that are in the throat. Like we were given tests where we had to write in all of the names of all of the different pieces of the human body. And then she was like, okay, great, now we have to learn about sine waves and the physics of the human voice and how the sound actually is formed.
Oh my
And
gosh.
then we went and talked to audiologists. We went to an ENT's office and talked to them about the science of the human voice. And we went across the university to the science department and talked to them with their, like, harmonics mapping for linguistics and helping people with speech impediments. Like, we needed that ability. The best teaching comes from the best learning, and the best learning requires all of these disciplines to come
Yes.
together.
Yeah,
Like,
for
you
sure.
can't just, as a voice student, I remember forever being taught, like, imagine there's leaves coming out of your mouth and you need the flow of air to be constant. And it's like, okay, but why? And, like, what's the actual function? Like, what are we doing with this? And it wasn't until that class where I was like, oh, so it's doing this and this, and my vocal cords are vibrating in this specific way, which requires this amount of force in order to create this specific sine wave coming out of my body that then, when it reaches your ears, sounds this particular way. Like, we need to be able to have those conversations across disciplines. Otherwise, we're going to stay rooted firmly in the dark ages.
Yeah, it's hard. It's so hard. Even with like a lot of comp sci research, I find the problem is they do a lot of things that they think, oh yeah, this is a good discovery, but they don't think, should this exist? Should we do this? Should we create this thing? Like this is
Humans
why
are so good at that.
yeah, and it's like this is where humanities comes in. This is where you learn about, okay, what are the implications of creating a technology that can do this? Right. And that's why
Oh
I think as
yeah.
computer scientists, we should engage with things like psychology papers, neuroscience, history, all these different domains. We should understand, okay, what will happen if we create this tool and what, instead of just bringing something out and then everything just goes anyhow.
And being reactionary too. I mean,
Yeah.
that was the thing that really was kind of driven home to me when I saw the movie Oppenheimer. Was just, they saw a need, and they were scientists who never talked to anyone in the humanities, didn't talk to anyone about history or anything, and were like, oh, we see this problem, let's come up with this technology. And then all of a sudden the US Army stole the technology, and we're like, cool, great, we're gonna drop this on someone now. And they were like, no. That's not why we invented the
Yeah.
atomic generator. Like, no, stop. And sometimes you just need, there's this is my rant that I always go on, and is that STEM is so important. It really is. But you can't have STEM without the humanities and the
Yeah,
arts. Like they have to inform each other
they have to work together.
because otherwise you have all of these like hard science and hard math people over here being like, great, here's what we have to study. It's important for learning all these cool things. And then you have the people in the humanities being like, so remember 100 years ago when this thing
When,
happened?
so maybe don't.
Maybe let's find different applications here and think
Yeah.
through the ramifications.
Yeah, it's important and it's really hard because a lot of people just think, oh, STEM, let's just build things. And it's like you need to understand why you're building it and understand the
Mhm.
impacts in which what building this will do to people, because people will
Yeah.
be impacted with anything that you create, like
And I mean, there is a place for I want to know how the world works, so I'm just going to research. Like, absolutely, there's a place
yeah,
for that. But I think context is
exactly.
always helpful.
Yeah.
um, Amazing. So that leads us to my favorite part of my podcast, our synthesis questions. Do, 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 do. So I'm going to ask you a series of 7 questions that I asked all of my guests.
Mhm.
And I don't want you to think too hard about these questions. I just want you to tell me what comes off the top of your head. So question number 1, what is your typical executive dysfunction or rest day activity?
Wow. um, Rest activity. Um,
Do you take rest days?
that see now that is a good question. I don't. But I do scroll on TikTok a lot, and a lot of the ideas I create for videos are just from me scrolling and being like, I'm gonna create a video from what I've just seen on here. So I would say I know that people say doom scrolling is bad, but for me, I learned a lot just from seeing different people's perspectives. Like
Mm,
my feed is not very like, oh, rage baity, all that sort of stuff. Like I just get to hear different people's days and things. So like to me, it's like a learning thing, if that makes sense. So I would say that's
yeah,
the thing I
absolutely. I mean, that works. Absolutely.
do.
What is your favorite setting for working on your research?
Oh, library. Oh, I love a library. Like I've just moved now, so there's a library in the town that I'm in, and it's really nice. And I'm so
Oh,
excited
I'm
to
so
work there one
jealous.
day because I love a good library. Like you can just see the park and everything, and just the
Mhm.
silence. Yeah,
Oh my
library.
God, there's nothing better than silence when you're
Oh
researching.
my gosh, yes. I need the silence, like no sound.
I'm too distractible. What is one thing an advisor has told you that has stuck with you? And this could be good or bad.
Oh, oh, that's a really good question. Um, I think one thing that really helped me in research is that done is better than perfect. Like I was a big
Mm,
perfectionist when I did my first dissertation, and one of the things that my advisor said was literally like, it's better for it to exist and for it to not work than it to not exist and we don't have anything to work with. So that every
mhm.
time I do something, I always build the worst version of it first and then iterate
Yeah,
on that.
yeah, that's really good advice. If you could choose any other area of research, what would you choose and why?
Ooh, neuroscience. Yeah.
Ooh.
I didn't realize how like important neuroscience and psychology is. Like it's so exciting understanding how our brains work and respond to things. So yeah, easily neuroscience. That would be so cool to look into.
I wish I was smart enough for neuroscience. Who is one other academic whose research you really admire?
Oh, um, that's a really good question. I'm trying to think now. Um, You know what? One of my personal tutors in computer science is doing a lot of research in AI in the workplace, which I find really
Mm,
interesting. And she's trying to see how could we apply AI in the workplace to help with like common tasks and like just within the
mhm.
workplace. I'm like, that is quite cool. I know that AI is like, controversial, but I'm interested to see how AI could work in the workplace.
Nice. What is a question you've never been able to answer?
Oh, um, I suppose where does like existentialism come from? Like, what is it? Like,
Hmm.
not what is it, but why do we have it in a world where we've got so many things to like keep us going and to entertain us? Why do we still feel as if life is meaningless? Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh,
That's a big question.
that one's gonna keep me up tonight. When life is so full of meaning, why do we
Yeah.
think
Why do we
that
not
it's
have, yeah.
meaningless?
Yeah. I find it so interesting that like, especially nowadays with technology and everything, like so many things entertain us, and yet we still have moments where we feel like our life has no meaning and that there's no point. And I'm like, why?
Ugh. Okay, well, that just unlocked some new existential
Oh
dread in
gosh.
me. So thanks. And then finally, what font do you wish you could present your research in?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. My new favorite font is Fig Tree. And
Okay.
you know what? It's sort of like it's like a Montserrat sort of. It's a sans serif font, and
Okay.
I love it. It's a similar font to the font Google uses. It's just so chill, vibey. I'm trying to use that font. I'm creating a poster right now, so I'm gonna try and use
Okay.
that font for that poster. But yeah, I'm a bit font obsessed. But yeah,
No, I love that. I'm also very font obsessed.
yeah. Like
And
I'm just a,
as
like sans
someone,
serif everything.
as someone in the humanities, I'm so tired of using Times New Roman for everything. I'm just like, there's so many prettier
I
fonts.
know,
Why
right?
can't we use something prettier?
I know there's so many cool fonts. I'm currently on a like I get bored of Times New Roman for a bit, but now I'm back into it for a bit of writing. But now I'm like, oh my gosh,
Mm.
picture all these cool fonts. Like,
Amazing. Well, thank you so very much for sitting down with me today and taking
of
time out of your
course,
day. I'm really excited to see where your research goes. So
yeah,
keep me updated.
of course, I will.
All right. And we will talk to you all later. Bye.
Bye.
Didn't I tell you it was such an incredible opportunity to talk to Demi today? I know I learned a lot from the conversation, and I really hope that you learned just as much as me and found the conversation just as interesting as I did. So thank you so much, Demi, for joining me on this episode, and thank all of you for listening. If you really liked this episode and you like listening to this podcast, please, please, please share it with your friends and family. The only way that we can get heard and help people dive into academia is if you share it. We can pour money into non-existent money that I don't have into promoting the podcast, and we're working on new ways to do that. But the best way for advertising has always been word of mouth. So please, please subscribe, share, rate, and review every episode. If you get a chance to, make sure that you're downloading the episodes when you listen to them, because it doesn't count for us on the back end if you listen and you don't download it. You have to download it when you listen in order for it to ding pop into our notifications as having a listen on the episode. So please, if you're listening, please make sure that you are downloading your episodes as well. And that goes for all podcasts. Just support your podcast, download the episodes. If you ever would like to ask a question to me or any of my guests, or just have questions about academia in general or life in general, feel free to send those in. You can submit your questions to us on Instagram at hypothesispod. You can also send them in via email at podcasthypothesis@gmail.com. Or you can send in an audio message to us at SpeakPipe. That's speakpipe.com at hypothesispodcast. That's speakpipe.com/hypothesispodcast. You can find all of the articles referenced in this episode on my Substack. That's iramcintosh.substack.com. That's Ira McIntosh, Macintosh with no A, iramcintosh.substack.com. You can also find myself on Instagram at Ira A. McIntosh, or anywhere else online at The Gay Ethnographer. So again, please subscribe, rate, review, and share with your friends. Let's fight misinformation together. Have a wonderful day, and go read a book. Bye.